NathanGDavis here. It's the Halloween season, and we recently redid the backyard and got set up with this nice chimney and an area to enjoy ourselves in front of the fire. And my dad found this old book that he used to love checking out from the library called Ghosts, 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 with stories selected by Phyllis Finner. And I really thought you guys would enjoy my favorite story from it. So, here we go. Not Quite Martin by Leon Wilson. On the longest day of summer, or to be absolutely exact, the shortest night of summer, Cody had a highly unusual adventure. Before I describe it, you need to know what Cody's favorite thing to eat was. Otherwise, you would never understand just how this exceedingly odd adventure came about. Have you ever looked at your tongue in the mirror after you've been eating huckleberries? Or maybe you've seen someone else's tongue. The berries color it blue for a while. Well, when it's summer on Cumberland Mountain and every hucklebush is so full of berries you could make yourself dizzy if you tried to add up the berries on even a small bush, you should see this boy Cody's tongue. Talk about blue. Sometimes when Cody says something to his mother after he's been eating huckleberries, Callie will say to him, "So help me, Cody, when you open your mouth, I have to look twice to make sure I'm not looking at the sky." And Milt will say, "I declare our boy's half a fool for those things. He's the huckleberry eatingest boy in Tennessee, I do believe." And then O'Malia will say, for of course O'Malia always has an opinion about everything, "My brother is a huckleberry." And Cody, when he hears this, will grin till the grin almost goes out of sight around his head. To Cody's way of thinking, remarks like these are the finest kind of compliments. When winter hits the mountain and the trees are glazed with ice and the ground is blanketed with snow, you might imagine Cody would be downhearted because there are no berries to be had. If so, you would be wrong. All winter he grins because he knows that spring is on its way, and presently the trees will put out their bright new leaves, and the woods will once again be absolutely popping with luscious, juicy huckleberries. O'Malia will eat huckles any time she happens to walk past a bush of them, but she's nowhere near being the nut about them her brother is. Her favorite food, of course, is yellow cornbread, fresh from her mother's oven. Sometimes she will polish off a whole pan of it and squawk for more. She would eat the stuff by the hour if her mother would ever bake that much of it for her. Cody makes an effort to understand how his sister can be so daffy on the subject of cornbread, but for the life of him he can't. "Cornbread," he says scornfully. "I believe I'd rather go hungry than have that crumbly stuff in my mouth." Pretty big talk, this, but don't get the idea that it bothers O'Malia any, for it never does. You see, O'Malia feels the same way about Cody's berry enthusiasm. When she sees her brother pass up a steaming chunk of cornbread running with butter because he's saving space for berries, she's apt to say something like, "Poor Cody, he's huckle-touched." Think this worries Cody? Not a bit. According to Cody, O'Malia is cornbread cracked. If she wasn't, he thinks, she would understand why he can never stop when he starts throwing down huckleberries. And Cody believes his father can't understand because his father's favorite food in all the world is leather breeches. Bet a nickel you never heard of leather breeches till this minute. They're a very special kind of string beans. On hot summer days, Callie will spread ordinary string beans in the sun and leave them there till they shrivel and shrink to almost nothing and become as tough as pieces of leather. Then when winter comes, she'll put a pinch of these tough little almost nothings in a pot, boil the daylights out of them, and they'll turn into string beans again, but the toughest, leatheriest string beans you ever flipped a lip over. The reason Milt has such a fondness for these beans is that they last a while. He likes something he can chew, something that won't disappear the minute you put it in your mouth. And say, for chewing, leather breeches beat anything you can think of. Take my word for it, they need chewing before they ever disappear. Sometimes when Milt is enjoying a mess of good old tough leather breeches, he will get to thinking about Cody's powerful taste for huckleberries, and he will say, "Cody, for the life of me, I don't see how you can eat so many of those things. I can understand eating a handful or two, or even a pail full, but not the slathers you put away. The way I look at it, when you eat one huckleberry, you've eaten them all. Don't they all taste the same?" When Milt goes on like this, Cody buttons his lips and says nothing, for he feels exactly the same about his father's leather breeches. He thinks an ordinary person couldn't taste the difference between one leather breech and another if he tried all day, and he believes his father is just a little bit leather breeches loony, or he would admit that this is the case. What's more, Cody does not agree that all huckles taste alike. There are good ones, he feels, and better ones. Better than ever ones, and best yet ones. Anybody, he thinks, ought to be able to taste the different qualities. Well, anybody who isn't crazy wild about cornbread or else completely hipped on breeches. Well, you now know the favorite eats of all the Capshaws but Callie. Truth to tell, she has no absolutely favorite food. She likes lots of things. Ice-cold buttermilk, asparagus, potato soup, persimmons, rhubarb pie, peanut butter. I could go on all day, for Callie isn't one-sided like the rest of her family. You might say she will eat whatever comes along. Well now, about this adventure Cody had. You couldn't guess what it was if you guessed all week. He didn't consume a lot of huckleberries that weren't ripe and come down with the bellyache. And Milt didn't tell him to quit eating so many, but he ate 'em anyway. He didn't fall over a cliff reaching for some that were growing far out at the tip of a branch. No, this was a real adventure. Now before I tell you about it, you've got to understand how Cody goes berrying. Then you will know how one thing led to another. Suppose you lived on Cumberland Mountain, and you were about 98% goofy on the subject of huckleberries. Probably you would set out any old way and ramble from bush to bush till you had eaten all you could hold. Not Cody, though. He was afraid he might miss a bush, so he had a scientific system. It was to keep going to the right in a spiral that kept getting bigger. This way, he picked every bush in every direction. If he ever missed one, I doubt if the sun knew where it was to shine on it, or the bees could find it to draw the honey from its flowers. And of course, each year as Cody grew bigger, he could hold more huckleberries. Each year he spiraled farther and farther through the woods, hunting them. This particular day that Cody had his adventure, O'Malia kept begging him to let her come along. She wasn't much interested in berries, though she would have eaten 8 or 10 dozen. She just wanted to be with Cody. "You play with your dolls," Cody said. "I've got some mighty important business to take care of." "Pretty please," O'Malia said. "I won't be a burr in your wool." "No, sister," Cody said. "I've got this afternoon all planned, and you're not in it." He didn't like having to be sharp with O'Malia, but he knew she would keep begging him if he wasn't. She might even follow him after he stopped watching her. "We'll do something tomorrow," he told her. "I won't be so huckleberry hungry then. We'll finish building that house for midnight, or we'll find us another bee tree. Promise?" O'Malia wanted to be sure. "If the sun comes up tomorrow, it's a promise," Cody said. "If there's a stronger promise, I don't know it to give it to you." So Cody got away from O'Malia. He had to be even crosser to get rid of Daybreak, for Daybreak had his mind strongly made up to go along. Cody knew that if he gave in, Daybreak would undoubtedly discover a skunk and pester it till the worst happened. Or if he didn't find a skunk, he would step smack on the only mud dauber for miles around and get his foot stung. Anyway, he would do some dumb thing that would be no help to scientific huckleberrying. So Cody shied a stick at Daybreak and made him yelp. "Home, you homely varmint!" he shouted, and Daybreak changed his mind in a hurry about accompanying Cody. And this is how this boy Cody came to set out the way he wanted to be, alone. Round and round he went in his big spiral till he got so far away from home that when night fell, he couldn't get home again. And this is how his adventure began. Of course, the minute Cody took time off from his huckleberries to notice how dark it was getting, he began streaking for home as fast as he could go. But as he put everything he had into burning up the miles, he knew he was being foolish. By this, I mean he knew for certain he wouldn't make it home by supper time. He had purposely saved up the longest day of summer for this huckleberry spree, remember, so he was now farther away from home than he had ever been before. And darkness was coming on fast, the way it always seems to when you don't want it to. It wasn't long before Cody, instead of running between trees, was running into them. "Ouch!" he cried when he hit the first one, then "Ouch!" After colliding with 5 trees, Cody quit running and began thinking. "I'm sure not getting home," he said to himself, "and I am getting a beaut of a bump on my noggin. What shall I do?" Don't make a mistake now and think that Cody was lost, for he wasn't. He knew perfectly well which way home was. All he needed to get there was a light. But he needed a lot more light than the 15 matches he had in his pocket. They wouldn't have lasted him 5 minutes. Had this been a night for the moon to come up, he could have proceeded easily. But there wasn't a sliver of a moon. This particular night was so absolutely totally black, Cody couldn't even see the end of his nose. He tried it. He looked cross-eyed to see if he could see it, but all he could see was night. Now, if you were alone in the woods and it was pitch black dark, maybe you would feel a little frightened. Cody wasn't, though. He knew all about the woods, and being alone in the dark didn't worry him a bit. Of course, he would have preferred being home with Milt and Callie and O'Malia, but since this was out, he didn't intend to waste time wishing he was someplace he couldn't be. What he had to do was decide how and where to spend the night. He wasn't sleepy yet because it wasn't bedtime, and he wasn't cold because it was midsummer, and he wasn't hungry because he was cram-jam full of his favorite food. All these things he wasn't. The main thing he was tired of bumping into trees. Now, just as the last speck of daylight had vanished, Cody had sighted a little log cabin in which no one lived. This is how he knew no one lived in it. First thing, no light in the window. Second thing, no smoke looping out the chimney. Third thing, no one moving around inside the cabin. Cody found this out by putting his ear to a crack in the logs and listening. He couldn't hear a sound. "Here's me my home for tonight," says Cody to himself, mighty proud of his cleverness, and he climbs the steps to the door, and just to make completely sure no one is inside, he knocks loudly. No answer. He would have been mighty surprised, of course, if there had been an answer. So he pushes the door open and takes a look inside. But you can bet he doesn't see much, for it's as dark in there as the inside of a cow. He lights one of his matches and looks again, and sees nothing, or almost nothing, just an old empty cabin. Not a chair or a table in it, not a lamp, a dish, or a bed. A few old sticks lying around on the floor to make a fire with, and that's all. So in pops Cody, mighty pleased with himself, and shuts the door and scrambles together some wood and makes himself a fire in the fireplace. "Why shucks," he says to himself, "this is almost as good as being home. The only thing I like here that I would have at home, besides a dish of huckleberry pie my mother was baking, is someone to talk to. Too bad I hit old Daybreak with that stick. I should have let him come along. I'd have me some company now." And now, listen. The very minute he thinks about company, there comes a tap, tap, tap on the cabin door. Very soft. So soft, Cody hardly hears it. So soft, Cody believes he has gone to sleep, and he's dreaming that he heard it. Now it comes again, a little louder this time, about like this, tap, tap, tap. This time, Cody knows he's really hearing something. Who in the world can be out there, he asks himself. Can't be anybody coming to see me, for who knows I'm here? Nobody. He scratches his head to help himself think. Maybe, he decides, it's someone come to visit, whoever it is, that doesn't live here anymore. And now on the door, there comes a good loud tap, tap, tappity tap. Whoever's out there, he's getting tired of waiting. He's wanting an answer. "Open the door and come in, sir," Cody says politely. "Whoever you are, come in and enjoy my good fire with me." Cody hears the door begin to open. He turns his head and peeks over his shoulder and sees not a man, not a woman, not a boy, and no, not even a girl. He sees a cat, a gray stripy cat with a long stripy tail. The instant Cody sees it, he knows it is no ordinary cat. For one thing, its yellow eyes are bigger and brighter and yellower by a good deal than an ordinary cat's are. For another thing, this cat's whiskers are longer, and its gray stripy tail is much longer than even Midnight's. And Midnight's is pretty long. I haven't told you yet how surprised Cody is, but you can imagine. He's so surprised, in fact, seeing a cat walk in when he expected to see a man, that he now says to the cat the very thing he had planned to say to the man. "Good evening, sir," he says, and the little cat switches his long stripy tail and looks Cody over with his big bright yellow eyes and replies as polite as you please, "Good evening to you, sir." Cody is really surprised this time. He has seen clever cats before. Midnight, for instance. If no one is around to help Midnight, she will push a door open when she wants in or pull it open when she wants out. But clever as Midnight is, she doesn't talk. Cody guesses mighty few cats are clever enough to talk, and he decides to keep an eye on this one and see what clever thing it will do next. But the cat doesn't do much more. It pushes the door shut, but then that's no great feat for even an ordinary cat. Then it strolls to the hearthstone and plumps down where it's warm from the fire and tucks its paws under its chest the way a cat will. And it curls its long stripy tail around itself, and that's all. Or just about all. One thing more, it turns its big bright eyes on Cody and gives him one of those long-lasting looks cats are so good at. Cody grins at the little critter, hoping it will feel at home and talk some more, but the cat says not another word. It yawns one of those gaping yawns cats go in for, and then it returns to watching Cody's fire. And this time, this is really all it does. "Pretty nice fire, isn't it?" Cody remarks. He's out to make the little thing talk. Does the cat reply? It does not. Does the cat even look at Cody again? It does not. It goes on watching the fire, for all the world as if it hadn't heard Cody speak. Cody shakes his head. What a crying shame, he says to himself. He's pretty sure he's never going to meet another cat clever enough to talk. Too bad this one won't open up so he can find out what cats think about. And now on the cabin door comes a rap, rap, rap. Not loud, but louder than the cat's tap, tap, tap. About like this. Rap, rap, rap. Well, says Cody to himself, who is it this time? Someone looking for the man who doesn't live here anymore, or another cat? Cody thinks it would be dandy if another talking cat came in. Might be just what this fellow on the hearthstone needs to get him going. Then, while the two cats discussed cat matters together, he could sit here and listen and learn. Rappity rap rap rap. Good and loud this time. And Cody realizes that with all his wondering who it is, he's been keeping the rapper waiting. He pops his mouth open to say, "Come in, whoever you are," but before he has a chance to say it, the cat on the hearthstone cries out, "You're wasting your time rapping. Open and enter." Before Cody can get over his surprise at this, he has to peek over his shoulder again, for the door is opening. A man this time? No. Another cat then? No, not another cat. A big old smiling possum. Chances are you've never seen a possum. If you haven't, you've missed something. Possums' eyes are small, almost as small as apple seeds, and their mouths are famous for the very long, thin, white teeth in them. And possums are famous, too, for their tails, which are not only long and thin, but almost completely hairless. And here's another thing. Most any time you see a possum, it will seem to be smiling. Only his smile isn't the kind you and I give out when we're happy about something. It's a special, quite unhappy sort of smile, and yet not altogether unhappy, about half and half, as if the possum had a bellyache but didn't mind it. Rather liked it, in fact. Possums seem to be saying with this special sickly smile of theirs, "Oh, I feel so sick, and I do hope you feel the same." Cody has seen possums before this, of course, for there are lots of them on Cumberland Mountain, but in all his life he has never seen such a possumy-looking possum as this one coming in the door. Never has he seen such very long, sharp teeth or such a completely sickly smile. And what does this most possumy-looking possum do? It shuts the door and then comes creeping across the floor in that slow-going, take-it-easy way possums have, and slides in beside the cat. Then it looks up at Cody with its eyes that are like two shiny apple seeds, and of course it continues to smile its half-happy, half-unhappy bellyache smile. And now it turns to the cat and asks in a take-it-easy possum sort of drawl, "How soon?" And at the same time, it jerks its head toward Cody so the cat will know what it's talking about. The cat glances up at Cody with his bright golden eyes and says to the possum, as plain as you please, "We can't do nothing till Martin comes." Then it yawns another one of those tremendous cat yawns and goes back to watching Cody's fire. This seems to satisfy the possum. Smiling its bellyache smile, it says not another word and commences watching the fire. Cody politely waits for the cat and the possum to say something more, even though he has a question troubling him. "Excuse me, please," he says finally. The cat and the possum look up to find out what's on Cody's mind. "I heard you mention Martin," Cody says. "Who is Martin? And about how soon do you reckon he'll be coming along?" The cat looks at the possum but says nothing. The possum looks at the cat and says nothing. They both look at Cody, silently. Then they look back at the fire. So all Cody can do is wonder about Martin. And as he wonders, he finds himself beginning to feel mighty regretful about something. What he said to O'Malia. "The next time that girl asks to go somewhere with me," he says to himself, "by golly, I'm going to let her. Right now, company is something I'd like to have, and I don't mean this four-legged company." And now on the door. Scrape, scrape, scrape. This time, Cody finds he isn't much interested in saying, "Come in, whoever you are." Maybe it's Martin. And maybe he doesn't care to see Martin coming in, making himself at home. The more Cody thinks it may be Martin, the more he wants to think no one is outside at all. So he tries his level best to believe that the wind is blowing a tree branch against the door. Of course, the scraping noise is a bit loud for a branch, especially when there isn't a breath of wind stirring, but Cody thinks there's no harm in trying. Now here comes again, much louder. Scrape, scrape, scrape. It certainly isn't a tree branch. "Kick it open and join us," the possum calls out in a loud voice, and the little cat cries out, "We're waiting for you." This time, as the door opens, Cody takes his time peeking around. He isn't by any means certain he wants to see who is coming in. And who is? Another cat? Another possum? Martin, maybe? Not quite. When Cody gets his eyes around, he sees a sleek red fox with high pointed ears, a long pointed nose, shiny at the tip, and eyes as glittery as two polished black marbles, and a tail so bushy and long that it's almost the size of the fox. And what does he do, this fox who is bigger than the possum, who in turn is bigger than the little cat? Well, he doesn't do anything, unless you want to call shutting the door something. He steps quieter than a whisper across to the hearthstone and glides in beside the possum. Then he swings his rusty red head Cody's way and slowly winks one of his glittery black eyes, for all the world as if he and Cody are sharing some deep secret. Then he turns to the possum and the cat, and in his super sleek, soft, foxy voice he asks, "How soon?" And the cat and the possum answer, "We can't do nothing till Martin comes." "Oh," says the fox, and once again he looks up at Cody and slyly winks one eye. And while the fox winks, the possum smiles his bellyache smile, and the little cat stares at Cody with his bright yellow eyes that every minute seem to grow a little bigger. And all the time the animals are watching Cody, Cody is thinking. He's thinking so hard about something good to eat that he can almost taste it. Strangely enough, it isn't huckleberries. It's an enormous plate of yellow cornbread fixed up with butter and bee honey. And right beside the steaming hot cornbread is a dish piled high with, have you guessed, leather breeches. And just beyond the breeches sits a glass of ice-cold buttermilk at least 10 inches tall. What a slam gorgeous supper, Cody thinks. My, if only I was home this minute with my ears pinned back, eating such a supper. I wouldn't be here in this crowded old cabin that's getting more crowded every minute. Boy, what I wouldn't give for a mess of cornbread. And right in the middle of Cody's cornbread thinking, crackety-bang! The door again. But this time it doesn't begin to sound like a branch scraping in the wind. All it sounds like is someone in a burning hurry to enter. "Kick it open and roll in," cries the fox. "Waiting for you," cries the possum. "Me too," cries the cat. When Cody peeks over his shoulder this time, he sees a panther. Now, if you've never seen a panther, an easy way to imagine what this one looked like is to think how that little cat beyond the possum would look if he wasn't little, but gigantic. What a whopper of a panther this one coming in the door is. His ears are as big as Easter baskets. His eyes are as bright as 2 flashlights. His whiskers stick out like knitting needles. His tail is so long, Cody wonders if it's ever going to end. It does end, but not for a long time. And what does the panther do? Nothing much. He shuts the door, of course, but then they all shut the door. and he stalks to the hearthstone and moves in beside the fox. Then he turns his flashlight eyes on Cody, and he looks the boy up, looks him down, looks him back, looks him forth, and after he's looked at Cody all these ways, he turns to the fox and the possum and the cat, and, in a gigantic panthery voice, he just says one word, "When?" And the cat and the possum and the fox all reply at once, "We can't do nothing till Martin comes." Now all the time this is going on, something else has been happening that I haven't had a chance to mention. Cody's fine fire has been burning lower and lower, the way any fire will when you fail to feed it. By now, the fire is so low and the cabin is so dark that when Cody looks at his 4 visitors, this is just about all he can see. The starry yellow eyes of the little cat, the shiny appleseed eyes of the smiling possum, the glittery marble eyes of the fox, one of them slowly winking from time to time, and the flashlight eyes of the panther. And all those eyes are looking straight at Cody. So Cody scrambles around in a hurry and builds up his fire. He wants to see more than just eyes. Yes, sir, as long as he has to sit here, he wants a good view of the folks he's sitting with. And now at the door, there is a new noise. Not a tap, not a rap, not a scrape, not a crackety bang, but one tremendous crash. As the door flies back, and in springs the biggest old black bear Cody has ever seen. He's 2 sizes bigger than the biggest bear Cody has ever even dreamed of seeing, and he's 3 shades blacker, and his black shiny eyes look as big as doorknobs. And what does he do, this bear of all bears? One thing he doesn't do, he doesn't shut the door. Hasn't time. Too big a hurry. One spring and he's on the hearthstone beside the panther, and he's looking Cody over with his doorknob eyes, but not for long, because he has to find out something in a hurry, right now. He turns to quiz the panther, the fox, the possum, and the cat, but before he can say anything, they all reply at once. "We can't do nothing till Martin comes." "Thanks for telling me," says the bear in a booming bear sort of voice, and he turns to look at Cody again. But now, what's this? Where is Cody? The animals look around the cabin quickly, thinking maybe he has run away. But Cody hasn't gone anywhere, not yet. He's standing in the middle of the cabin, looking down at his feet, and anyone can see that something about his feet is worrying him. As the animals watch, Cody begins stamping, one foot and then the other. He makes quite a bit of noise with them. The animals look at one another in amazement. "What's the big idea?" they seem to be saying. "Why this stamping? Why isn't this boy Cody sitting here enjoying this good fire with us while we wait for Martin?" And perhaps you were wondering. Well, I'll tell you. Back when the panther came stalking in, Cody began to feel an itchy sensation in his feet that wouldn't go away. In fact, the longer he sat on the hearthstone doing nothing to get rid of the sensation, the itchier it became. By the time the bear burst in, Cody's feet were itching him so bad he couldn't sit still another second. That's why he's stamping now in the middle of the cabin. "Itch in my feet," he informs the bewildered animals. He can tell from the way they look at him that they don't believe a word of it. The yellow eyes of the little cat, and the possum's apple seeds, and the fox's glittery marbles, and the panther's flashlights, and the bear's doorknobs are all as full of disbelief as they can be. "Young Mr. Cody seems not to care for our company," the animals appear to be saying. Cody is sorry they don't believe him, but he doesn't see what he can do about it. After all, he's telling them the truth. It's their tough luck if they won't believe him. "Stamping helps some," he goes on, "but not enough. I believe I've got to walk some. Walk fast. This little cabin isn't half big enough for the walking I've got to do. I'd be hitting the walls 6 times a minute trying to do my walking in here." All the time Cody is explaining this, he's backing slowly to the door, and now he stands with one of his itchy feet outside on the steps, waiting to go. "Friends," he says, and his feet are so impatient he can hardly stand still long enough to say this one more thing he wants to say. "Friends," he says quietly and politely, "when Martin gets here, tell him I was here, please, and tell him I waited as long as I could, but I couldn't wait 1 minute more." And saying this, Cody commences his fast walk away from the cabin, and do you know, the minute he looks back and sees that the cat and the possum and the fox and the bear aren't following him, his feet practically entirely stop itching. Well, That's the adventure Cody had the day he ate more huckleberries than he had ever eaten before. The sun was coming up, and he started his swift departure from that cabin, so it wasn't a great time before he was home again, eating breakfast with Milt and Callie and O'Malia. Between bites of pie, for Cody's breakfast was a piece of the huckle pie he had missed out on the night before, Cody told his story exactly as I have told it. How he met the cat, the possum, the fox, the panther, the bear, and almost but not quite Martin. The minute he finished, O'Malia, who had been listening pop-eyed to every word, exclaimed, "Fiddle faddle, you made it up to give us a thrill." "Made it up?" Cody said indignantly. "Possums don't talk," O'Malia said, "and neither do cats or panthers or foxes or bears." "This possum talked," Cody said, "and so did the rest of them. Shucks, they talked all kinds of stuff." O'Malia shook her head and looked exceedingly wise for a little girl of 7. "I suspect," she said sternly, "you went in that cabin and fell asleep and dreamed every bit of it." "Dreamed it?" Cody cried. "You wouldn't have thought it was a dream if you'd been there." O'Malia went right on as if she hadn't heard Cody. "In fact," she said, addressing her mother and father, "I've made up my mind it was a dream. Cody must have eaten some green huckleberries, and they didn't sit right." "Dream," Cody muttered, spooning up the pie juice on his plate. "Green huckleberries." Suddenly his face puckered up with thought. "What's the matter, Cody?" his mother asked. She feared Cody might not be feeling well, having been up so late the night before. "Nothing's the matter," Cody said. "I'm thinking." "Thinking what?" Milt asked, for he could see that Cody was pretty worried. "He's thinking how glad he is we saved him this little old slab of pie," O'Malia suggested. "I'm thinking," Cody said slowly, "maybe my feet shouldn't have gotten itchy just when they did. Golly, the very next one might have been Martin himself. Now I'll always wonder who Martin was and never know." "Dreams like that," O'Malia said in her most grown-up tone, "always disappoint you when you wake up." No sooner had she said this than there came a strange thumping noise at the front door. O'Malia's heart almost jumped out of her mouth. Quickly, she reached for the cream pitcher so Cody wouldn't see how startled she was. But Cody was watching the door, not his sister. The door was opening, slowly, mysteriously. Cody felt the hair on the back of his neck begin to creep. He held his breath. And O'Malia completely forgot about the cream and held her breath. And the door swung wide, and in walked, yes, a cat. But this time, the cat was a normal-looking, non-talking cat with regulation-size eyes. Just midnight looking for breakfast. Cody sighed in relief. Then he looked at his mother and father and O'Malia. "Dream or not," he said, grinning, "that's exactly the way it started."